Think about the last time you felt truly deeply guilty.
Oh, that's a heavy way to start.
I know, I know. But stick with me. I don't mean just a fleeting moment of regret over, eating the last slice of pizza.
Right, right.
I mean a profound, sinking sense of guilt. If you really picture that moment, you probably felt a sudden, heavy lump in your throat.
Absolutely. It's so physical.
Yeah, exactly. You probably found it physically impossible to make eye contact with the person standing right in front of you.
You're just staring at the floor.
Staring at the floor, your shoulders likely slumped, your head dropped. We all know that deeply uncomfortable physical sensation.
We do. It's universal.
And usually we think of guilt as this highly evolved, complex moral compass that's magically acting upon our souls.
Like, it's the ultimate proof of our advanced humanity.
Exactly. But what if we have that completely backward?
That is the big question today.
What if that feeling isn't a moral high ground at all, but an ancient primate survival tactic?
It completely flips the script.
It really does. Welcome to today's deep dive, where our mission is to completely dismantle the way you understand human guilt.
It's going to be a fascinating ride.
We are pulling from a really thought-provoking project by Vitaly Fokin. It's called Matrix of Meanings, or Matrica Smyslov in its original Russian.
It's a fantastic source text.
Okay, let's unpack this. Fokin is essentially arguing that guilt isn't some mystical internal emotion at all.
No, not at all. It's a compelling, almost jarring premise to start with, honestly.
Yeah.
To truly grasp what Fokin is getting at, we have to strip away centuries of philosophical and, religious assumptions about morality.
We have to forget what we think we know.
Precisely. We have to stop looking at guilt as a modern human concept and look backward at our evolutionary inheritance.
Because Fokin defines guilt, very specifically, as a social behavior pattern.
Yes. A social behavior pattern. It is a pattern response. It's an emotional way of demonstrating that we agree with a negative judgment about an unacceptable action.
Wait, so you're telling me that when I feel like profound, gut-wrenching regret over hurting a friend, I'm essentially just running a biological script?
Put bluntly, yes.
That feels a bit, reductive, doesn't it?
It does sound reductive at first glance, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But Fokin isn't saying the emotion you feel isn't intensely real.
Okay.
He's saying the mechanism driving it is ancient. If we treat guilt as a social behavior pattern, we quickly realize this pattern didn't start with hominids. It's deeply embedded in the animal kingdom.
Which brings us to an example from the source material that everyone listening will instantly recognize.
The classic scenario.
The classic scenario of the family dog.
Oh, yes.
You walk into the house, and your dog has completely shredded your favorite pair of shoes.
A nightmare.
Total nightmare. The evidence is scattered all over the rug. Now, you haven't even yelled yet, but the dog is already shrinking down.
Tucking its tail.
Tucking its tail and looking up at you from under its brow.
It looks incredibly guilty.
What's fascinating here is the sheer mechanics of that interaction.
Consider the limitation the dog has. I mean, it cannot speak.
Obviously not.
It has absolutely no capacity to use complex language to communicate to you, hey, I understand I caused damage to your property, and I apologize.
That would be convenient, but no.
That verbal avenue is entirely closed.
Yeah.
So how does it bridge that massive communication gap when it senses your displeasure?
It has to use its body.
Precisely. It expresses its realization entirely through emotion and physical posture.
It shrinks.
It shrinks, it averts its gaze. It is communicating absolute agreement with your negative judgment purely through a physical display.
It's amazing how clearly they communicate without a single syllable. But comparing human morality to a golden retriever chewing a sneaker is a big leap.
It is a jump, sure.
How does Fokin bridge that gap to us?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, he traces it directly back to our primate heritage.
Okay.
Early primates, much like that dog, lived in incredibly complex, rigid social hierarchies, but they had no language to navigate them.
Right, they couldn't just talk things out.
Exactly. If a lower-ranking primate committed an unacceptable action against a stronger, more dominant primate, say, taking food out of turn, they couldn't just talk their way out of a beating.
Right, there's no, hey man, my bad, I thought you were done with that.
Exactly. They had to rely entirely on what Fokin calls facial expressions, gestures, and emotional flows to communicate their submission and appease that dominant figure.
Emotional flows.
Yes. And Fokin argues that humanity inherited this exact behavioral template.
So we're just doing the human version of that.
When we feel guilt, We are tapping into a pre-verbal survival mechanism designed to de-escalate a threat from someone stronger than us.
I want to dig into the physical side of this because I asked you, the listener, to think about your own physical tells earlier for a reason.
And they align perfectly with this theory.
They really do. Foucault doesn't just speak in metaphors here. He maps this animal behavior directly onto our own human physical reactions. Let's look at the biology of it.
Let's do it.
The first specific manifestation of guilt he highlights is that universal lump in the throat. We've all felt it.
It's unmistakable.
It's that tightening sensation that makes it hard to swallow, let alone talk.
And this is where the evolutionary perspective gets really concrete. Foucault argues that this isn't just a random symptom of stress.
Yeah.
No, this is literally your biology blocking your speech.
Blocking it.
In a moment of intense guilt, your body is reverting you to a nonverbal state.
That is wild to think about. Your body is basically gagging you.
Essentially, yes. Think about the autonomic nervous system.
Okay.
When your body perceives a massive social threat, like the terrifying outrage of an alpha figure, your stress response kicks in.
And it goes straight to the throat.
The muscles around your vocal cords and glottis actually constrict.
Wow.
From an evolutionary standpoint, your body is shutting down your complex human language because, historically, talking back to an enraged dominant primate is a great way to get killed.
So it's saving your life by making you shut up.
Exactly. Your biology forces you back into that primal, purely emotional state of expression.
It's like your own nervous system is saying, words won't help you now. Shut up and look pathetic.
That is a very accurate way to put it.
Which leads perfectly to the second physical symptom Foucault points out, which is the downcast eyes.
The classic guilt look.
Whenever you know you are dead wrong, the hardest thing in the world is to look the person you wronged in the eye. You immediately find the floor incredibly interesting.
Yes, the potopleny vizigliad, as he calls it in Russian. The downcast gaze.
The downcast gaze.
In the animal kingdom, direct eye contact is rarely casual.
It's usually aggressive, right?
It's almost always confrontational. It is a challenge. Foucault explains that averting your eyes is a physical expression of admitting a mistake.
You're waving a white flag with your eyes.
By refusing to meet the gaze of the person you have wronged, you are visually removing any challenge to their authority.
You are dropping the pretense of defiance.
You are sending a clear visual signal that you yield to their judgment. You are in the wrong, they are in the right, and you are not going to fight them on it.
And the third physical manifestation he highlights just completes the picture. It's the lowered head.
Right.
When we feel guilty, we physically shrink.
Yeah.
Our shoulders slump. We bow our heads. It's almost involuntary.
Which is the ultimate primate signal of submission.
Making yourself small.
Lowering the head signals a readiness to submit to the will of someone stronger. Think about the physical vulnerability of that posture.
You're totally exposed.
You are exposing your neck, your jugular. You are making your physical footprint smaller. You are acting out the deeply ingrained social pattern of a subordinate appeasing a dominant figure.
So what does this all mean? When we put these three things together, the constricted throat, the averted eyes, the lowered head.
It means that the feeling we call guilt is fundamentally an act of submission.
An act of submission.
It isn't just an emotion. It is a physical performance of submission to a dominant figure. It is an inherited behavioral template designed to show a stronger entity that we recognize our error and we submit to their judgment.
The word performance is really key there.
It is.
Because this leads to one of the most entertaining and honestly thought-provoking parts of Foucault's analysis.
I know where you're going with this.
What happens when you take this incredibly primal, non-verbal primate instinct for submission and you load it into a human being who has language and a high degree of self-awareness?
That is where the collision of biology and human intellect becomes incredibly apparent.
And sometimes quite theatrical.
Highly theatrical.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because a human with a high degree of self-awareness completely understands their dependence on the strong person in the dynamic.
We know the stakes.
We know we are in trouble. But unlike the dog, we have vocabularies.
We have words.
So we don't just lower our heads and look away. We put on a show. There's this brilliant dramatic quote in the source material where Foucault imagines the kind of elaborate performance a highly aware person might put on to appease a dominant figure.
Oh, God, please read it.
Let me read this. He writes, "O great king, do not execute, have mercy. I fought, sparing no life for king and fatherland, and am ready to atone. By Christ God, I beg and kiss the life-giving cross."
What's fascinating here is the sheer, overwhelming theatricality of it.
Right. I mean, obviously, I don't use those exact words when I have to apologize for missing a deadline at work, but the energy is the same.
The core intent is identical.
We write these long, groveling, self-deprecating emails. We over-explain how terrible we feel.
Look at what is actually happening underneath that flowery language.
It's all just smoke and mirrors.
This elaborate, sweeping monologue is essentially just a highly sophisticated human translation of a dog tucking its tail. Because we are aware of our dependence on the strong, we use our human capacity for complex speech to achieve the exact same goal that primates achieve with mere gestures and emotional flows.
We just dress it up in poetry.
We do. The primate lowers its head, the self-aware human writes a poetic plea for mercy, and kisses the cross.
But the engine is the same.
The underlying engine, the behavioral pattern, is completely identical. It is still just a demonstration of agreement with a negative judgment to appease a dominant figure.
It really makes you rethink every apology you've ever given or received.
Does it?
Is it genuine moral reflection, or is your body just forcing you to do a survival dance for the local king of whatever situation you are in?
And that brings us to the philosophical perspective Phokin outlines. He argues that, from a philosophical standpoint, guilt is essentially a ritual of appeasement.
A ritual of appeasement.
This ritual is deployed specifically when a dominant personality is outraged by the damage you have caused.
Let's put that into context. I want you, the listener, to imagine the stakes of ancient tribal life for a second.
The stakes were life and death.
Literally. Imagine you are an early hominid living in a small group on the savannah. Your survival entirely depends on staying in that group.
You can't make it alone.
You cannot hunt alone. You cannot sleep safely alone. If you anger the leader or you damage the community, the ultimate threat isn't just getting yelled at.
Yeah.
The ultimate threat is exile.
And exile, in the Pleistocene epoch, meant almost certain death.
Game over.
The elements or predators would get you within days.
Exactly. So the stakes of this ritual couldn't be higher.
Phokin makes this point explicitly. When a person fears being rejected by the group, they demonstrate guilt to maintain their belonging.
To stay in the fold.
This is the core function of the behavior pattern. The community, or the dominant leader, is outraged. The offender's place in the group is suddenly threatened.
So they have to act fast.
To stop the threat of being cast out, they must deploy this ritual. They must show the physical signs of submission, the lowered head, the averted eyes, to appease the outrage and secure their place in the tribe.
It is a literal defense mechanism against social exile.
Synthesizing this, Phokin concludes that demonstrating guilt to avoid rejection is hierarchical behavior of primates.
Hierarchical behavior.
It is how social animals maintain the balance of the group and secure their own survival within the hierarchy when they step out of line.
So the system corrects itself.
The dominant individual exerts power, the subordinate demonstrates guilt, appeasement is achieved, and the group remains intact.
Okay, if we stop right there, this makes complete logical sense.
It ties everything together neatly.
Guilt is an evolutionary trick to keep us from getting kicked out of the tribe by appeasing the alpha. I buy that.
But
Here's where it gets really interesting. And I love how Phokin pivots here. If guilt is purely a social hierarchical performance designed for a dominant external figure,
yes.
why in the world do we feel it when we're completely alone?
This raises an important question, and it is the exact anomaly the text explores next.
Because it breaks the rule, right?
The entire model we just discussed relies entirely on an external threat, the outraged alpha, the judging community. But human experience contradicts this as the sole explanation.
Right. I can sit alone in my car and feel a crushing weight in my chest over snapping at a cashier who I will literally never see again.
There's no alpha there.
There is no social threat there. Phokin lists these fascinating exceptions where the alpha model completely falls apart.
He does.
He points out that humans can feel profound guilt without any social pressure at all. We can feel it before a child.
And a child isn't an alpha.
A child isn't a dominant alpha figure we need to appease to survive.
No, a child is entirely dependent on you.
We can feel it before an animal. We can feel it in front of a complete stranger.
Yes.
We can even feel guilt before someone who has died. Think about the mechanics of that for a second.
It's a paradox.
You can sit in a room entirely by yourself and feel overwhelming guilt over something you did to someone who is no longer even alive to receive your appeasement ritual.
It doesn't make sense from a purely external survival standpoint.
And Phokin points out, we could even feel guilt before ourselves.
These exceptions are crucial because they challenge the purely social, external model of the behavior pattern.
So how did he explain it?
In all of these cases, the child, the animal, the stranger, the deceased, oneself, there is no external strong person threatening us with exile.
Right.
There is no dominant personality standing in front of you whose outrage must be managed through a physical performance of submission.
Okay.
So the implicit question becomes, in a vacuum, without an external alpha, who exactly is the accuser?
Yes. Who am I lowering my head to when I am completely alone in my bedroom? Who is making my throat constrict if no one is there to attack me?
Fokin provides a profound final insight to answer this.
Let's hear it.
He argues that in these specific cases where there is no external dominant figure, the accuser becomes an internal moral standard.
An internal moral standard.
Over the course of human development, we haven't just maintained the external social ritual, we have internalized the hierarchy itself.
We built the alpha inside our own heads.
We built an alpha figure inside our own minds.
That is wild.
And we have a very specific traditional name for this internal standard.
What is it?
It is what we call our conscience.
Our conscience is the internal alpha.
Yes.
That is just a brilliant reframing.
It is a remarkable synthesis of biology and psychology.
It really is.
The suggestion here is that our conscience is essentially an internalized version of the dominant tribal leader or the judging group.
So even when we're alone,
When we violate our own internal moral standard, even in total absolute isolation, our body and mind react with the exact same primate behavioral pattern.
the biology still kicks in.
The feeling of the lump in the throat, the desire to shrink, the physiological stress response, it all fires as if we were facing an external threat of exile.
We can't escape it.
We are performing the ancient ritual of appeasement for our own internal accuser.
Wow. Let's take a breath and look at the journey of this deep dive today.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. We started with the image of a dog chewing up a pair of shoes, completely unable to use words, expressing its realization of a negative judgment through pure physical emotion.
Right.
We traced that exact same emotional flow back to our ancient primate hierarchies, where averting eyes and lowering the head were vital nonverbal survival tools used to appease dominant leaders and avoid a deadly exile.
The evolution of submission.
We explored how self-aware humans dress up these ancient biological instincts with theatrical apologies and flowery language, acting out elaborate plays of submission while our bodies do the heavy lifting.
The great king monologue.
Exactly. And finally, we arrived at the startling realization that when we are completely alone, feeling guilty over a stranger or a lost loved one, we are still performing that ancient primate ritual.
But the audience has changed.
But the alpha we are desperately trying to appease is our own conscience.
It is a fascinating trajectory, moving from the purely biological to the deeply internal and philosophical.
It really is. It takes something that feels so mysterious and sometimes overwhelming and grounds it in our shared physical evolutionary history.
And if we look closely at what Fokin has outlined, it leaves us with something quite profound to consider moving forward.
What's that?
If the physical feeling of guilt, that heavy, sinking, painful sensation in your chest and throat, is fundamentally just an ancient evolutionary primate ritual designed to stop us from being kicked out of the tribe,
Yeah.
does understanding that biological trick change how much power you should give to your own inner critic?
That's a great question.
If your conscience is simply using a primate survival tactic to keep you in line, perhaps we can learn to observe that feeling without being entirely consumed by it.
That is exactly the kind of question that makes diving into texts like this so rewarding. It gives you an entirely new lens through which to view your own internal life. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Vitaly Fokin's Matrix of Meanings. We hope this look into the hidden evolutionary mechanics of guilt is giving you something fascinating to chew on and maybe, just maybe, a little grace the next time you feel that lump in your throat. Keep asking questions and always stay curious.